Oh my God. Let me throw the phone away so I'm not distracted. Oh, it didn't mean to do that. Hello there. Welcome back to The Bleeding Truth. My name is Sally McNally. I'm the Irish midwife.
And I'm Bridget, Sally's daughter.
We're here with another episode from The Bleeding Truth. And some of our people have been asking us to do some more story time. So I think that's what might be happening today, right, Bridget?
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. It's been on our to-do list to talk about this part of Sally's past.
Yeah. So when I was a child, I was always being given things like teacups to read the tea leaves and to read people's palms. And eventually somebody gave me a packet of tarot cards.
Was that just
Yes.
for fun though? Like, read my hand, Sally. Or
Well, I'm not sure exactly where it started, but I guess I was a little clairvoyant, a little psychic, and most children are. But in Ireland, it's like a celebrated thing. It's not a scary thing. It's not something to be squashed or um, it's not thought of as a weird thing. In like every house, you might have somebody who wanted to be a priest or somebody who wanted to be a mathematician and maybe somebody who wanted to be psychic. So, like a few times I can remember like knowing who was on the phone before the phone even rang, or who was coming to the door, stuff like that. Um, and so people would encourage that in me, especially my mother. Um, she really liked it. She would always keep her teacup with her tea leaves in the bottom. And the way we used to do it, you'd have to turn it over and give it a half twist and then read the tea leaves that would be stuck at the bottom of the cup. And she would say, read my tea leaves. But what she was giving me really was this gift of imagination. I would stare at the tea leaves and the pictures would form from the way the little tea leaves were in the bottom of the cup. And my imagination would start, telling a story. And so I would attach the story to the person who had drank the tea leaves. So then they would say, this is my teacup, that's my teacup. So I'd have to sit with the person while I'm reading the tea leaves, right? And it was like a little fun thing that we used to do, but it developed into quite a big thing in my life, actually. I then grew up and became a nurse, and I was still doing it for my friends. And then I learned how to read palms, how to read tarot cards. And people would say, Sally, you have to see me. I need to ask you this. I've got to find out, am I going to marry him? With young women, it's like, is he the one, Um, but we had so much fun with it, and I had so much fun with it, and it gave me such wonderful expression for my thoughts that it was just like whenever I'd sit with someone and look at their hand or look at their tea leaves or whatever it was, I'd have this explosion of them in me, and I could feel everything that they were feeling. I could see their life, and it was so exciting because I started to get really good at it, and it wasn't so much that I was psychic. Now looking back, I know that I was good at reading people and their micro reactions to what I was saying. And that's really how that kind of stuff works. You're like sensitive to what you're witnessing.
that makes a good nurse. Being able
Yes.
to like be there for that person in the way that they need it. And every
Yes.
person's different. Kind
Right,
of,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So if I'm looking at a patient, I can tell, how is she reacting to what I'm saying? Is her body tensing or is her face relaxing? Does she looking, like interested? And am I giving her what she needs, basically? But yeah, so I had this little gap in my life where I came back from Saudi and I was waiting to get a visa to come to America. So I had like this little bunch of months. I think it was like 5 months. And I mean, I'm a shark. I can't sleep, And so I had to do something with that. So I rented a little office in Dublin, and it was up the third floor up this little windy stairway, and it was a great little office. And I started reading hands in this office. And my father was like, "What are we going to do now? What are you doing, Sally?" And I was like, "It's just something I have to do just to get it out of my system because I've been doing it for years. And I just want to see how this would go." So it was a little street off Grafton Street. Grafton Street's a beautiful pedestrian street in Dublin. And I went up and down all the shops in Grafton Street with a little printed piece of paper, and on it it said, "Sara the Clairvoyant." Like, Sarah, I didn't call myself Sally for this. I wanted to have a different persona. So I said I was Sara the Clairvoyant, and this was the address to come and see Sarah.
You're a businesswoman.
Oh, yeah. We didn't have any way of like printing things off. I had to like print them on a little typewriter.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I thought maybe some people will come, I'll rent the place for a week and see what happens. And the first few days, I don't think anybody showed up.
Oh.
And then and then one person showed up, and she sent 2 people, and those 2 people sent 4 people, and those
Wow.
4 people sent 8 people. And within 2 weeks, I was mobbed. That
Wow.
within 3 weeks, there was a line down the stairway, and at 4 weeks, that line went out into the street. I proved to myself I was good at that. I was really, really good at that.
Wow.
And I was up there in the room, and I was had my little crystal ball. I was reading their hands. I was doing their tarot cards.
You went all
and
out.
Then we started doing these visuals. When I realized they had like this health problem or something, we'd do these visuals of, getting healthy and getting strong. I didn't even realize it. I was actually doing the hypnosis. That's what the whole thing was about, was learning the hypnosis. And I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
But now when I look back, I was doing it for years. So, but it was very intense because the more the people were coming, mostly what I had been used to throughout the years doing it just for fun, they were like young women. Tell me my love life, Now it started to get more serious. I was getting, people who were broken, who were addicted, who were sick, I remember somebody with AIDS coming up, somebody with polio coming in, somebody with, cancer or heart disease. And I could start to feel the pain in my own physical body. And it was so hard. I'd sit with them, and before they'd even talk to me or anything, I was getting so sensitive to and open to what was coming in the door. I was literally, Bridget, feeling pain in my body.
Wow.
And it was starting to get really hard. It was getting really hard.
So is that kind of what brought it to an end?
I was getting exhausted. And and I remember I couldn't go out. I mean, like in a regular job, you would just come out, go get your coffee, you'd go have your lunch. I couldn't walk by these people because they were like, "I need to talk to you. I have to tell you." And it was like, people really get into this stuff. They get like really believing this stuff.
But it's not like you're misleading them.
No, absolutely
it's
not
almost
misleading
like
them.
just being there.
I was a mirror showing them what they were feeling or thinking or needing. I was just a mirror. But I was absorbing a lot. And I remember the way I charged them, I glanced down at their shoes. If they
Really?
had, if they had like worn out old shoes, it was just a couple of pounds. If they, or euros, I can't remember which it was. I think it was pounds at that time. No, it must have been euros. Um, but if they had fancy shoes, if they were like well off, then it would might be a little bit more. If they were students, there was a definite cheap student rate. But whatever they'd give me, I would slip it in under this big heavy psychic book that I had, and it would just slip in under, slip in under. And then at the end of the day, I would it was usually nighttime. I'd lift the book up and there would be a little pile of money. I was making like hundreds of euro.
Yeah.
And it was quite a lot of money, for what I was doing. It was like, where did it come from? It's like, what? Because I wasn't focused on the money
Right.
part. But everyone said you have to charge them something because then it's like they're part of the deal. They're handing something over for this.
Of course.
Cross my
It's an
hands.
exchange,
It's,
yeah.
yes. But so I would take this money and I would go downstairs to what was known as the smallest bar in Dublin, down in the basement of
Is it
this
still
building.
there?
It's still there. It's a great place. It's tiny and it's wonderful. And of course, after a couple of weeks, everyone knew who I was down there. They'd all been up to me as well. And they'd be like, here she is, here she is. And I'd go in there just to kind of drop it before I'd go home. And I'd buy everybody around a drink. It was like, that's kind of what the money was. And everyone would, drinks are on Sara the Clairvoyant,
That's so funny.
But then it was a very strange time. It was very interesting. And I did later find out that some very famous Irish poets and writers had used that room, that they drink in this bar and they go up there to have like private conversations or,
And you
to
didn't
share.
know that?
I didn't know it. And when I found that, like Brendan Behan, that kind of like writer,
Don't know.
really fabulous. He was an alcoholic, but he was also a fabulous artist, And I was like, cool. I was sitting in the same space as these poets and artists.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I felt like I was meant to be there to develop something inside my mind. The art of being invisible as myself and being totally present to the other person. So now that brings me to now, many years later, and I have this interest in hypnosis, and I'm a certified hypnotherapist. And, I realized that I was learning that years ago, um, and in ways it was the same thing, to create the imagery for the person so that, if I'm telling somebody your future, I want to tell you the future that you can have, the best one for you, right? I'm not going to say awful things are going to happen to you. Like when I was learning how to do that, I was taught never say you're going to die next week, even though, sometimes you get that feeling.
That's nuts.
But yeah, it was nuts. But it was really, like last week you were telling me about falling through the roof of your
That was
house.
yesterday.
That was yesterday. Yeah. That made me think about this story because I was reading my brother-in-law's hand once, and I said, well, I don't know why I'm seeing this, but I see your legs coming through the ceiling or something. And within a few weeks, that's exactly what happened to him. Or another person, I was saying to them, I'm looking at your hands and I see there's no bandages on them, but I see bandages on them. So they called me a week later saying that the barn had burnt down and they burnt both hands trying to save the cows.
Wow.
And they're like, and I'm all bandaged. So So what is that? You know, it makes you think, what is it that we can actually see things happening in the future?
Is it like just, I mean, I'm sure some of it is coincidence.
And some of it is the imagery, the
Yeah.
imagination imagery, right? But some of it's so spot on, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like, um, I remember so many instances, you know, where I'm just sitting talking to a person, trying to bring them to their future, and yet their past pulls me back, and I would feel compelled to tell them about, you know, what I see about them losing a baby, or you know, you know, losing their home, or being in a car crash. I'd feel like compelled to say, I just feel this, like, you know, this feeling like perhaps this happened, and they'd be like, yes, that happened. You
Wow.
know, so what is that about us that we can do
Well,
that?
not everybody can.
I think everybody can. I that's what I really think everybody
Mm-hmm.
can. We just don't develop it in ourselves. Like I had a
I
special
guess.
interest in it.
And
And
good
I mean,
encouragement, I guess, from your mom with the tea leaves. So,
oh yeah.
but that's, I
Even
can't say that because you've encouraged me to be more open to hypnosis
yeah,
many times.
yes.
But like it doesn't work the same. I'm stubborn
Yes,
in
I
my
know.
mind at least.
Right,
And
right.
every time, like even like yoga, I think I've mentioned it before, but when we do like the final resting pose at the
Yeah.
end,
Shavasana.
yeah, shavasana, I'd always be fighting it in my head. Like I could relax my body, but my mind would just be like, no, 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 we're not gonna relax into whatever she's telling me to do. Um,
Right.
so it has to
Right.
come from the individual. I'm sure it does help to
Yes.
have like supportive environment, but
Right.
yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It has to come from the
Mm-hmm.
individual, that they have to be open to it. Yeah. My brother-in-law, Kevin, he had a class in New York, and I was visiting at a time, and he brought me in to introduce what I was doing to the class, because he was, you know, studying psychology. And um, so they brought to me two people. One was a skeptic, and one was a believer, right? Somebody that would normally want to get their
Ah,
hands read.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's
so that
there's
was
those two types of people.
right. And they wanted to see what would the reaction be, or, you know, what what kind of a way would
Was it in
the
front of a bunch of people
in
too?
front of a class.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's even
So
tougher.
so yeah, the believer, I read their hand first, and it was a natural flow. They gave me all the right, you know, reactions, the little twitches, the little excitement. I could feel I was on the right line. I kept going with their story. They were like, yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. Yes, yes, yes. And I was like, yes. And I could just tell their whole story. They were an open book, right? And then the skeptic comes, right? And the
Me,
skeptic,
literally me.
right? Yeah. So the skeptic, I'm reading them, and with them, it was tight and hard and grumpy, and was like,
Mm,
oh, trying to work through. So of course the story starts getting negative, you
mm.
know. So their story was negative, but I did manage to come up with a few jewels for them that I can't really remember if they became a believer, but the class all believed. They were like, you were spot on with those two. So
Wow.
the class really enjoyed it. But I mean, you know, our minds are so strong when they're directed onto one subject. If it's scattered energies like I am mostly, it's hard to get anything done,
Same. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But when we focus, laser focus on one thing,
Yeah.
but what with this palm reading that I did, and then the hypnosis. and then the yoga. For me, I feel so lucky because it all ties up into a lovely bundle
Right.
for childbirth.
Right.
Because a woman in labor, she's physically working hard, and how can she attach her mind to what she's doing, you know? So it, partly when I'm in there and I'm talking to them, I try to bring the mind to focus on what her body is doing instead of running away or fighting what her body's doing.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know what that's got to do with anything. Just forget that
No,
part.
don't forget that part. I think that's super relevant to now. I think
Yeah.
that it makes a lot more sense, like
Yeah.
how you connect all those dots, because I find it like challenging to be super passionate about more than one thing
Hmm.
at a time. But you
Yeah.
have all those different avenues, and it actually does all connect. Like
Well,
there's
it makes everything more interesting,
for you,
you
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
for
And
me anyway. I hope it does for the patient too.
well, absolutely. You know, I think when you're able to just react appropriately to whoever's there, then they get like the experience that they were hoping for,
Yes. Yeah.
um, or you're able to help them in a way that they couldn't find elsewhere,
Hmm.
possibly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a part of my story that I don't share with a lot of people here because, you know, you tell them, oh, yeah, I was a palm reader in Dublin once. They're like, what? What? That's crazy. Isn't that crazy stuff? And it was kind of
Sara
like
the Clairvoyant.
Sarah the Clairvoyant. Yeah, I have the little piece of paper still somewhere. But it was like, it was something I had to do. But I wanted time to focus on it to do it. But I can still see my little mother coming up that stairs past all the people, coming in with, you know, a little flask of soup for me because she
Oh,
knew I couldn't get out to eat, and she'd bring in a little
she'd go
brown
down
bread
to Dublin.
sandwich.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And because she felt it was a good thing that I was doing. Now she's super Catholic, right?
Hmm.
Um, and but she's also Irish, so she kind of like likes the fun of all of that. But of course she's dead many years now, but I can still feel her encouragement of that, you know.
Hmm.
And she'd say, "You're right," you know, like when I'd be reading her tea leaves, she'd be listening to me and saying, "That's right, that did happen, and yes, I am going to buy that." Like I'd be saying like silly things like, "You're going to get a new pair of slippers" or something. That's what I could see in the picture. And she would encourage me, saying, "Yes, keep coming," because it was story time. And you see, we're Irish, Bridget, we're
Yeah.
storytellers. You know, before we had electricity in Ireland and all of that, we had a fireside, and that's what we do. We'd sit around and tell stories.
Hmm.
So this was just another form of telling stories.
And before phones, obviously.
Oh yeah, and
Well,
before
now
phones.
you eat and then everybody just goes and does their own thing on their device instead
But
of sharing the stories together.
right,
Yeah.
right. But I'm really grateful to you for giving me this opportunity to do the podcast because it's just an extension of being a storyteller,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's
I
your
want to
truth.
tell stories. I have a lot of stories.
Yeah.
I I really like this medium that we can sit and tell our stories, and
Hmm.
I hope loads of people tell their stories. That I mean, I've been starting to listen to podcasts myself now and other people's stories, and it's great fun, you know, just to like visualize them and see
Hmm.
them like living their lives. And that's what I was doing in that little office off Dawson Street way back in the day in Dublin,
Hmm.
you know, just telling people their stories.
How long were you doing it for?
I guess maybe 3 or 4 months, I think,
Yeah.
altogether. but I was totally exhausted after it.
Yeah.
It was like, because I gave it my 100%, and I'd be going home thinking about these people and how can they live like that, and how sad some of them were, and the tears that were shed in that little office, and the hands that were held, and the hugs that I got, and the humanity of the moments. It was like such an amazing time, such a gift to be able to be with people so real, it didn't take any time at all. Within moments, I was allowed in.
Mm-hmm.
I really was affected by it.
Yeah. I feel like you could have been a great therapist or criminal psychologist.
Oh yeah, I'd love to have been that. Yeah, but I
Behavioral.
don't think
Yeah.
I had the stamina, the
Yeah.
emotional stamina for it, because I
Yeah.
wasn't maybe mature enough or stable enough at the time myself. Um,
Mm.
yeah, probably not stable enough at that time of my life. It was just too much. I didn't know how to control it or to let it
Right.
go at the end of the day. It was hard because
Yeah.
I was compassionate,
Yeah.
for these people. I truly wanted to help them.
You soak it
But I
all
can,
in and then
yeah.
you don't know what to do with it almost.
Yes. But even to this day, I have memories of them, like glancing down at their shoes and, seeing the holes in the shoes, or the expensive Italian leather, and it's like, but they're all just wanting to know that they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, where we come from. It's just like, tell me I'm going to be okay. Tell me my future is bright. Right? Yeah.
Maybe we could do that on an episode where you read someone's palm.
Yeah,
Because
sure, I'd love to
I
do
mean, I
it.
think that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I just realized I have a splinter.
Probably from falling through
Yeah,
the roof.
probably from falling through the roof. Like, what does that mean? Because that, I don't know, I couldn't tell you an example, but I feel like I remember you doing that with me when I was a kid.
Yeah,
You'd like explain to me different, like, love line or something.
yeah, your
And
health
then
line, your lifeline.
Lifeline, yeah. And then,
But plus, like when you focus like on a line, you're thinking, I'm looking at her lifeline. So you're thinking, how is this person's life going to flow? Are they healthy? Are they
which one's the
strong?
lifeline? Do you remember?
The big long one that comes down through the hand.
That's kind of short. What happens if there's a cut in it?
That maybe you're going to change direction. That you'll stop doing one thing and start maybe another thing.
I do that every year. Interesting.
Yeah. There is a great place for that, in the world. And coming from Ireland, I have a great value for that kind of stuff. But
yeah, but when you're like, a believer versus a skeptic, I think there's also a difference between a believer who is just believing that someone's actually psychic and can see the future versus like someone who is intuitive and an empath
and a vehicle
or has good communication cues,
right,
just like I think there's a believer in someone that is good at connecting with other people versus truly believing like that you're seeing the future. Because I don't think, I'm the skeptic for starters, but I don't think I believe that's the case. I think that there's ways that you can essentially connect to other people that give you insights that.
But it's not something I want to pursue now. Now I would have gone towards the hypnosis, whereas I can still work with that imagery and
What's the big
help people.
difference between what you do now with hypnosis, like say for someone who wants to quit smoking, and what you would do with the smoking addict in that little office above the Dublin bar? Like what's the difference?
Well, let's say taking smoking as an example, the smoker would have come in and said, "Will I ever be able to kick this habit?" Whereas in the hypnosis, the person is coming in saying, "This is what I want. I want to stop."
That's true.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who's coming to a psychic saying, "Will I ever be able to?"
Well, you want the best for them, right? Yeah. So you would perhaps do a visualization, of seeing them as strong and healthy, and not smoking. That yes, in the future you can see them not smoking, but as you're saying it, you want them to see themselves as not doing it. Whereas in the hypnosis, you're working with them that they're actually visualizing themselves going through, their day and not smoking, maybe coming to a time when they would normally smoke, but instead they're doing something different. So they're a part of the visual. They're not just letting you do all the work. They're internally doing the work. Yeah, but the hypnosis is great. I love it.
Yeah.
And before you would start the visualization with hypnosis, you would talk to the person, find their wording, and then incorporate their wording into the visualization.
That's hard to really pick up on what they need and what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. But of course, we learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just good at it naturally.
I just want any of my patients who are listening to this to know you're safe. I'm not going to start reading your hand.
Unless you want.
Unless you want. I won't bring out the crystal ball unless you ask me.
The part I'm proud to hear is that you actually collected some money.
Yeah,
because that's the most impressive part. Normally you just say, no, don't pay me. Don't you dare. And then we're all like, Sally, you have to charge for your work. You need to get paid for your effort.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. I know. I was quite proud of myself. But then I'd go and buy everyone a drink in the bar.
Also classic you. Yeah, also very classic. So what you had was the entrepreneurial, but not the money management side of it. You needed a manager.
Yes. Yeah.
That's funny.
It was very interesting. But that street was kind of like magical, I remember.
We'll have to go. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. While I was doing that, Mother Teresa came to the building across the road, or close by. And she was coming to visit. And I remember seeing her coming out of the building. We were watching her on TV. I wasn't actually there. And she came out and somebody handed her a bunch of flowers. And she was like, "Oh, thank you so much." And she turned around, she handed them to the next person. And I thought, wow, that's so beautiful. I love that. That was like the way, I wanted to be like that I wasn't, inclined to hold on to stuff,
Mm-hmm. But wait until you see your garage.
Non-attachment. Now. Yes, no. Yeah.
Attachment.
I got over that.
Now she's a hoarder.
That's all Johnny.
I'm just kidding. Mother Teresa, no more.
You're funny.
I'm sorry. She's not
We're
a hoarder.
Always saying we have to clear out that garage before we die so Bridgie doesn't have to.
I've already started. The last couple times I've been there, I've taken like 6,
Yeah.
10 different garbage bags out and went to the thrift store.
Is that where all my stuff's going? No, I'm joking.
Yes.
Good on you. All right, so that's enough of that, Bridgie, huh? Just like a prisoner.
I call them my prisoners. I call them
Aww.
that.
So, thank you very much for listening to My Bleeding Truth. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate it. And if you like what we're doing, give us a bit of a review on Apple. That would help us so much. And if you come across a subscribe button, press the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything.